the young and the restless spoilers in the shadowed depths of Genoa's underbelly. As dusk melted into night and the city's secrets whispered along narrow alleyways, Martin found himself face to face with the one person who had long been his elusive partner in crime. The figure of Audra, quiet, enigmatic, and full of her own unspoken promises, emerged from the darkness as if she were an integral part of the city's hidden tapestry. Their clandestine meeting took place in the hushed confines of an old hotel, its corridors echoing with the ghosts of past transgressions and unfinished stories. Here, beneath the dim glow of flickering neon lights, the two conspirators embraced a fate that was as uncertain as it was inescapable. Martin's heart pounded with urgency as he pressed for the plan he'd spent countless sleepless nights formulating. "Audra, we both know that Genoa won't be our refuge for long," he hissed in a low, controlled voice, his eyes darting around to ensure their secrecy. "The police are closing in, and every piece of evidence, fingerprints, surveillance, testimonies, draws nearer to me. If we don't leave now, I'll be caught, and all our secrets will be laid bare." His words were laced with the desperation of a man who had lived too long in the shadows, haunted by betrayals and the ceaseless specter of retribution. Audra, sitting gracefully on the edge of a time-worn armchair, offered a half-smile that could hardly mask the cold certainty in her eyes. For her, Genoa had grown into a life of unexpected joy and stability, a city that had provided her solace after years of wandering and heartache. "Martin," she replied, her tone even but resolute, "I have built a life here, one that I actually enjoy. I can't abandon it simply because you fear capture." Her words cut through the charged silence, carrying with them the weight of a decision long made. It was a declaration of independence, a refusal to be dragged back into a fugitive existence that once defined Martin's every move. The revelation stung Martin like a fresh wound. In his mind, the only path to survival was to run away together, to leave behind the constant threat of arrest and the judgment of a world that had never forgiven him. "Audra, you knew what you were signing up for," he growled, the bitterness of betrayal creeping into his tone. "I trusted you to stand by me when it mattered most. Now I learn you've fallen for Nate, of all people, and you're willing to sacrifice everything we planned for a life of comfort here." His voice trembled between fury and despair, an outburst born of a lifetime spent dodging destiny and clinging to fleeting moments of trust. Audra's eyes flashed with defiance as she leaned forward. "I never promised to live in the perpetual darkness of hiding, Martin," she retorted sharply. "I have found a place in this world, a place where I can breathe and dream again. Nate represents a new beginning for me, one that doesn't come wrapped in the constant threat of arrest or the burdens of your past." Her words, though measured, carried the unmistakable note of betrayal. The shift in her allegiance was more than just a change of plans. It was an emotional rupture that severed the tenuous ties that had once bound them together. The tension in the room escalated rapidly as Martin's eyes darkened with a storm of anger. "You think you can just abandon me?" he spat, his tone rising to a near shout. "If you don't come with me now, I swear everything will come crashing down. The secrets we've kept, the life we've built in the shadows, they can't remain hidden forever. Either you run with me or I'll have no choice but to expose everything. And believe me, the fallout will be worse than you can imagine." His hand, trembling with a mixture of rage and desperation, moved as if to physically grab hold of her. The threat was implicit and palpable. A warning that his love, twisted as it was by years of isolation and fear, had turned lethal. Audra recoiled as if struck by an invisible force, her eyes filling with equal parts shock and defiance. "I will not be intimidated by your threats, Martin," she declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil churning within her. "I refuse to leave the life I have here. I won't become your scapegoat for every crime and every misdeed. I won't live my life in the shadows, and I certainly won't love a man who forces me to run away from everything I've worked for." In that moment, her words rang with a finality that left no room for negotiation. Audra's refusal was absolute. She was done with the endless chase, the cycle of running, hiding, and betrayal that had defined her past. For a long, agonizing moment, the room was suffused with an unbearable silence. The hum of the city outside, the steady drip of rainwater against the window, and the distant murmurs of other lives going on obliviously all served as a stark contrast to the charged confrontation unfolding within the hotel's aged walls. Martin's face contorted with anguish as he stared at the woman he once believed was his salvation. His mind, a labyrinth of twisted loyalty and unyielding fear, raced to formulate a plan, a final gambit that might salvage the life he was desperate to preserve. "You're leaving me no choice," Martin muttered, his voice barely audible as he inched closer. "I won't let all of this, our past, our secrets, our very existence, go to waste. If you won't come with me willingly, then I'll force you. I'm tired of waiting, tired of watching everything slip away into oblivion." The raw emotion in his tone was a dangerous cocktail of love and hatred, a volatile mixture that hinted at the unthinkable. Audra's eyes hardened as she rose from the chair, stepping back to create distance between them. "You're mistaken if you think I can be coerced into a life of perpetual fear," she replied, her voice resolute. "I'm not a pawn in your game, Martin. You can threaten all you want, but I'll never be part of a life defined by running and hiding. I have my own destiny now. One that doesn't include you." The finality of her words was like a closing door, a boundary drawn in the sands of time that would not be easily crossed. Outside, the night deepened, and the city of Genoa continued its relentless pulse, indifferent to the drama unfolding within a single, forgotten hotel room. The police were still on the hunt, and every minute that ticked by brought the shadow of impending capture closer to Martin's door. Yet, in this moment of bitter confrontation, the chase had lost its clarity. What had once been a clear-cut escape plan had now devolved into a raw struggle between two souls whose paths had diverged irreparably. Martin's desperate plea hung in the air as he stepped back, his face a mask of torment and regret. "I don't want to do this," he whispered almost to himself. "But I can't let everything we've done be for nothing. These secrets, I can't live with them anymore. If you won't help me, then I'll have to take drastic measures. And you know what happens then." His tone trailed off into a heavy silence, leaving the unspoken threat to linger like a malignant presence. Audra, now trembling with a mixture of fury and sorrow, could only shake her head. "I'm done, Martin," she said softly, each word measured and final. "Let the past be buried. I'm not your escape route, and I'm certainly not going to be the sacrifice you make to keep your secrets safe. I have to live my life without the weight of your darkness." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Martin alone with his shattered hopes and the echoing promise of a life that could never be reclaimed. In the days that followed, the repercussions of that tumultuous night began to unravel. Martin, now more isolated than ever, was forced to confront the stark reality that his meticulously planned escape was falling apart. Every piece of evidence that the police gathered, every fingerprint and surveillance clip, seemed to tighten the noose around his neck. His internal battle between the man he once was and the fugitive he had become intensified with every passing moment. And in a cruel twist of fate, the life he had hoped to leave behind in Genoa was slipping further from his grasp. Audra, on the other hand, plunged into the life she had chosen. Embracing the stability and quiet promise of a future with Nate, she sought to rebuild her identity free from the chaos of Martin's influence. In Genoa's vibrant streets, she rediscovered a sense of purpose, a life not dictated by secrets and relentless pursuits, but one where hope and genuine affection could finally take root. Yet, even as she moved forward, the ghost of that fateful meeting with Martin would forever remind her of the danger lurking in the shadows of broken promises. And so, as the city of Genoa continued to weave its intricate tapestry of life and mystery, two paths diverged in the darkness. Martin, haunted by the weight of his own decisions, wandered further into a maze of despair, his once brilliant schemes now reduced to a bitter reminder of what could have been. Audra, liberated from the confines of a life on the run, embraced the future with cautious optimism, knowing full well that some secrets, once set free, have a way of coming back to haunt those who refuse to let them go. In the end, the choices made in that lonely hotel room would echo through the lives of all involved, a stark testament to the enduring struggle between desire, betrayal, and the desperate need for freedom. For Martin, the cost of his obsession was not merely a failed escape, but the loss of the one person who might have once offered him redemption. And for Audra, the rejection of a life defined by perpetual hiding was a declaration of independence. A promise to herself that she would never again be trapped by someone else's demons, no matter how dark they might be. Thus, amid the ceaseless hum of Genoa's nightlife and the relentless pursuit of justice outside its walls, two hearts beat in defiance of fate, each determined to carve out their own destiny, even if that path meant leaving behind all that had once been cherished. This narrative weaves together the intricate dynamics of betrayal, desperation, and the conflicting desires for freedom and love. Martin's frantic plea to escape a crumbling life collides with Audra's resolute need to remain grounded in a newfound stability, setting the stage for a final confrontation between a man haunted by secrets and a woman determined to live on her own terms. The dim corridors of the old Genoa hotel had long concealed secrets, but that fateful night, hidden truths would claw their way into the open. In a quiet, shadowy corner of a private suite, Martin and Audra had been locked in a heated, covert conversation, one meant for only the two of them. Unbeknownst to them, however, Nate had found himself lingering nearby, a silent witness to words he never wished to hear. Nate's heart pounded as the conversation spilled out like poison in the still air. He could barely process the toxic nature of the exchange. The words were sharp and laden with betrayal, and as each syllable fell from Audra's lips, Nate's mind reeled. Audra, whose past he had once thought was simply complicated, now revealed depths he had never imagined. With a trembling voice, she confessed that she had truly come to love Nate, that her heart belonged in Genoa now, and that she longed for a stable life away from Martin's dark, fleeing existence. In a desperate plea, she begged Martin, "Please let me go. I have chosen Nate. I want to build a life here. Don't trouble me anymore. I need forgiveness. I need peace." These words, intended for Martin's ears alone, shattered Nate's illusions. The revelation was more than just a betrayal, it was an exposure of a side of Audra that Nate had never seen. The pain was raw, and the weight of her confession hit him like a tidal wave. Nate's thoughts churned violently. How could the woman he loved, the one he believed to be honest and devoted, be so entangled in a web of lies? Her past, complex and shadowed, now loomed larger than ever in his mind, tainting every memory they had shared. As the conversation continued, Nate's anger grew. He listened as Martin's voice rose in a mixture of fury and desperation, a voice that promised retribution if Audra did not surrender to his demands. The tension in the room was palpable. Every word from Martin dripped with menace. Every plea from Audra was laced with resignation. Nate's internal conflict was fierce. He felt betrayed, wounded by the toxic interplay of manipulation and half-truths. Yet, amid the whirlwind of emotions, an instinct emerged, a need to protect Audra from the spiraling chaos that threatened to engulf her. For Nate, the choice was agonizing. On one hand, he was furious at the betrayal, the realization that Audra had not been fully honest about who she was, that she had allowed her sulking moods and troublesome past to complicate their relationship. On the other hand, he recognized the vulnerability in her voice, a vulnerability born not just of weakness, but of a profound internal struggle to escape Martin's grip and to embrace a new life. It was as though Audra was caught between two worlds, the dark, relentless pursuit of a fugitive and the promise of a normal, grounded existence with Nate. Unable to contain the surge of protective instinct any longer, Nate's hands clenched into fists as his eyes burned with determination. His mind raced with a single, desperate thought: he had to act. The dialogue he had just overheard was a declaration of war. A war waged not just against Martin, but against every secret and lie that had so long tarnished the purity of his love for Audra. Nate's heart, still aching from the betrayal, began to beat with the resolve of a man who would not stand idly by while the woman he cared for was dragged into a life of perpetual conflict. In a moment of heated resolve, Nate pushed open the door to the room where Martin and Audra had been locked in their clandestine conversation. The sudden intrusion was like a burst of daylight cutting through a darkened room. "Audra," he shouted, his voice echoing off the bare walls, "this isn't what I signed up for. I thought I knew you." His tone was a mixture of anger, hurt, and an unwavering determination to protect her from further harm, even if that meant confronting the very person who had been by her side moments before. Martin's head snapped up, his eyes flashing with both surprise and indignation as he met Nate's piercing gaze. For a moment, time slowed. The charged silence between the three was as heavy as a verdict in a courtroom. Audra, caught in the crossfire, looked at Nate with conflicted emotions swirling behind her eyes. She had spent so long straddling the line between two worlds, and now the facade was crumbling. "Nate, you don't understand," Audra began, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you. I have a past, a complicated past, and I'm trying to leave it behind. But Martin, he's not the only part of that past." Her words trailed off as she struggled to articulate feelings that had been locked away for too long. The truth was messy, a tangle of emotions and mistakes, and the pressure of the moment made everything painfully clear. She was torn between the promise of a safe future with Nate and the lingering chains of her former life. Nate's eyes, filled with a mix of fury and sorrow, narrowed as he turned his gaze to Martin. You listen to this man, he spat, voice low and seething with anger. I won't allow you to poison everything we've built. I'm here to protect Audra, to give her the honesty and stability she deserves, and you've been threatening to drag her back into a life of running and hiding. His tone was both accusatory and resolute, a stark contrast to the resigned softness in Audra's earlier plea. Martin, his features hardened by years of living on the run, shot back with equal intensity. You think you can just waltz in and clean up my mess? Audra chose her own path. She told me she loves you, that she wants to stay here. And I won't let her walk away from everything we've planned without a fight. His words carried the weight of desperation, a man cornered by fate and haunted by the relentless pursuit of justice. Caught in the middle, Audra's heart pounded as she looked from one man to the other. She had always been a survivor, accustomed to navigating treacherous emotional landscapes. But the raw intensity of the moment left her reeling. Please, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm of emotions. I don't want to fight. I'm tired of this endless chaos. I'm choosing a new life, a life with Nate. Martin, I beg you, let me go. I can't live in fear and deception anymore. Her plea hung in the air, a fragile declaration of her will to break free from the past. Nate stepped forward, his eyes softening as he reached out to gently touch her shoulder. Audra, I'm here for you, he said quietly, his voice imbued with a protective warmth that contrasted sharply with the earlier tension. But you have to be honest with me, no more secrets, no more half-truths. The vulnerability in his tone belied the fierce determination behind his words. To him, love meant fighting for the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Martin's face twisted in a grimace of disbelief and fury, his entire being recoiling from the sight of his carefully laid plans unraveling. You're making a mistake, he hissed, stepping back into the shadows as if to vanish from the light of Nate's righteous anger. Audra, don't you see? If you leave with him, everything will fall apart. Our secrets, our plans, they'll be exposed and you'll regret it. His threat was both a warning and an expression of his own inner torment, a tormented soul unwilling to let go of the only life he had ever known, even if it was built on lies and betrayal. The tension reached its climax as Nate's gaze bore into Martin's, a silent promise of retribution hanging in the charged air. I won't let you hurt her, Nate declared firmly, stepping closer to ensure his resolve was unmistakable. If you can't let Audra live her life without dragging you along, then you're the one who's lost in your own darkness. His voice, calm yet unyielding, conveyed a stark ultimatum. It was not just a confrontation, it was a battle for Audra's future, for the chance at an honest life free from the perpetual cycle of deceit. For a long, agonizing moment, the three stood there, each caught in the throes of their own conflicting desires and fears. Audra's eyes filled with tears as she took in the gravity of the situation. The weight of her decisions pressed upon her like a relentless tide, and in that moment, she realized that the path forward would not be easy. I have to choose, she murmured, voice quivering as the reality of her predicament sank in. I want to live a life that isn't defined by fear or secrets. I need to be free from the past, even if it means facing the unknown. Nate, his heart aching with a mixture of hope and sorrow, nodded slowly. Then let's do this together, he said softly. I'll protect you, but you have to promise me honesty, Audra. No more hidden truths, no more betrayal. We build our future on trust. His words, tender yet resolute, were a beacon of possibility in the midst of the chaos. Martin's features contorted with anguish as he realized that his grip on Audra was slipping away. In that moment, his own reflection seemed to shatter. The once daring fugitive now faced the bitter truth of his isolation. With a final, tormented glance, he retreated into the shadows, leaving behind only the echo of unfulfilled promises and the lingering threat of a past that might one day resurface. As the night deepened over Genoa, Nate and Audra found themselves at a crossroads. The echoes of their sea,